Welcome everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Atsuki series. This is a series where I build a fictional Japanese city, and in case you haven't watched the first video yet, then you can click the link in the top corner of the screen right now, and that will link you to the playlist for this entire series. So welcome. First of all, I want to thank all of you for commenting and liking the last video. I didn't expect the video to actually keep 100% like rating. Thanks a lot for that, and thanks a lot for all the positive comments as well. I'm really glad to see that people are interested in the series and that people are actually, sort of like already contributing information to me as well, like things about Japan and things that I need to know, and also giving suggestions about what I should make in the upcoming videos. So thanks a lot for that. I also want to thank all of you for subscribing. I'm literally almost hitting 100 subs already with the first video, and I'm really happy with that. So if you want to see more of this city, then definitely subscribe to this channel. This episode is the last episode that I recorded before I started editing the videos. And this episode was a little bit all over the place. It was initially going to be split up into 2 shorter episodes, and I was editing the episodes and I realized that there were a lot of things that I built and that I later decided to remove or rebuild. So I really had to cut all the footage up in a way where it was a big puzzle to piece this episode together, but I think it came out nice and still watchable, but I decided to not make it 2 episodes. Last episode we made a small train station, and this episode we're making a much bigger train station. This is a really large project. There's a lot of things that are basically just repetition. I do it a whole bunch of times, and I don't want to bore you with that because then the video would have been probably 2 hours long. There was a lot of screen footage for this, and I really cut out a lot as well. So if there's any things that happen or suddenly appear on the screen and you haven't really seen me build it, then don't worry, because then it's something that is actually removed later, and then you'll probably see me build a similar thing later in the video. Now, some of you might know already that when you build something in City Skylines, the first time usually it turns out alright. But then if you decide that you're not really happy with it and you're gonna build it another time, then most of the time, that second time, it turns out way better, because you're kind of like, well, you have a little bit of a feel for what you want to do. So I did that with a couple of things in this episode, and I think in the end, it all turned out a lot better. So this station that we're building, it's the main station in Atsuki. It's going to be called Atsuki Station as well. So it's kind of like the central station of the city. And in the version of Atsuki that I built previously, that I thought was going to be the series, but I actually ended up not using, I explained that in the first episode, but that version of Atsuki, I made a station that was pretty much a replication of Tokyo Station, and I made it on like a realistic size as well. So I actually measured the length of Tokyo Station, and I really did it on the realistic size. Now, that is great. It looks really awesome. But I explained in the last episode that I'm not going to be able to do it that big, because then the city, well, the limits of the game are probably not going to allow me to build a city that large, and I don't want the station, well, I want at least to have maybe 2 bigger train stations in the city, and they need to be spaced apart in a reasonable, realistic kind of space, right? You don't want 2 stations really close to each other. So I'm trying to confine everything in a slightly smaller space. So this station is slightly shorter than what like Tokyo Station would be, for instance. Now, this is also not a replication of Tokyo Station, as you might be able to realize. We're building a crossing station here. So we have 1 platform on the upper level for Shinkansen trains. So that those are the trains that are actually coming from the outside connections of the map. And then I have 3 more platforms that are for local train lines. So those are going to be, the upper level is basically where people will come in and then they can transfer to the local lines, which are on the other platforms. And then I also have 2 more train platforms that are on a lower level, that are basically crossing underneath the big train lines, where the Shinkansen also runs. And those are going to be other local lines that are basically going to connect to some other places. I'm not sure where they're going to connect to yet. But this station is mainly inspired by Shibuya Station. So Shibuya, Tokyo, it's also a crossing station. You can see it right now on the screen. So the upper level goes through a building. Now I'm not going to do that. I could do it, but it's going to be really difficult to do, especially also when you want to set up train lines, because you have to be able to see the actual platform to be able to set the train line. And if we're going to hide everything inside of a building, then that would be really difficult to do. Plus, I also don't want to recreate Shibuya Station. I want to let myself be inspired by it. And it's basically Shibuya Station as well doesn't have a Shinkansen connection, for instance. So I'm kind of combining Tokyo Station with Shibuya Station. And the main thing that I really want to capture, sort of like around this station, is the density that you see in Shibuya. It's really dense around the station. There's a lot of high-rise, big shops, a lot of shopping malls and stuff like that. And then there's a lot of commercial buildings just in general in that area. And I really want to capture that density. So what this station is going to be, it's kind of the central point of the downtown area. We're going to have a good amount of like skyscrapers and big high-rise and big shops. I have a whole bunch of buildings that are actually located in Shibuya in real life, so I might be able to use those in this area. I'm not going to position them in the same way as they are in Shibuya. I don't want to recreate it completely. I just want to let myself be inspired, like I said already. So this is really going to be like the central transit hub of the city. This is where I think the only Shinkansen stops are going to be. I think I don't want to have any more Shinkansen stops in the city. I think this is going to be the only spot where the actual, high-speed trains stop. And then this is basically the spot where everybody comes in and then transfers to other forms of public transport. Now, we have the local train lines here, and that's all really good. And of course, as you can see, I'm also making pedestrian bridges and overpasses. Everything is really going to be interconnected in this particular area. It's a really layered kind of station, if you get what I mean. But there's going to be a lot more types of public transport in this area. I'm obviously going to make a big bus and taxi stop area, which is going to probably connect to outer edges of the city. Like, buses are good for bringing people to spots where trains, for instance, will not come. So, for instance, let's say on the outer edges of the city, we are going to have some hills or some slight mountainous areas. Trains are not really a good form of public transport to transfer people to higher elevated areas. Buses are much better in that particular instance. So buses are going to be good for that, and taxis as well are just great for transferring people around. But we're also going to have this monorail line. So you can see right now I'm putting in a monorail station that also crosses underneath the upper level of the train station. And this monorail, I don't know, it's not really needed in this area because we have all the train lines already. And we're going to have the buses and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have metro as well, by the way, here, subways. But I just love the look of this, this suspended monorail. It looks so good, and it looks so nice to see these cars just going through the downtown area. Especially if you later you'll see that we have a good amount of like skyscrapers and like bigger buildings around it, and that suspended monorail going through it. It looks so amazingly cool. Really good asset, by the way. I really love that one. So yeah, this station really was a big project, and I mean, I already shrunk it down to a slightly smaller size than what a real life station would be of this kind of, this kind of size and kind of thing. I made it smaller, and I already spent so much time on it. I cannot imagine how much time it would have taken me if I would have made it on a realistic size, like I was initially going to be doing. I think I already had a couple of hundred gigabytes of screen recording for this particular one, so yeah, I think it's only for the better that I made it slightly smaller. Now, for the area around here, I'm not entirely sure yet what we're gonna make entirely. I have a couple of ideas, but I'm also not really sure yet what the next episode is going to be, so if you guys have an idea, then definitely let me know. So, the trains we're going to be using in this as well are not going to be the full-length trains. Like, in real life, a Shinkansen train usually has about, like, 16 cars. There's shorter ones as well, but like, the full-length trains are usually 16 cars. And then there's also, most of the time, 8-car versions. The ones I'm going to be using are the 8 car and the 9 car versions. I think those are still a reasonable length, and already you can see how big this station has become and how big this project is. And imagine the station being twice the length of what I just made or what I'm making in this episode. It would have been insane to do. So, yeah, I'm just happy I actually decided to not make it that big. So in this episode, it's a lot of detailing. The general layout of the station is now laid out, and I'm really just working on the detail around it. So you can see I'm using a lot of procedural objects to kind of make decals in a shape that I want them. I'm gonna have this really interesting crossing here. I'm using this new mod. I think it's called the node controller, and it allows you to basically widen up spaces. So you can basically take a node and you can make it wider. So it's really nice because I wanted to have this diagonal crossing here, and I had to make the node wider so that cars would actually stop in the right spot and not stop, somewhere in the middle of a crosswalk. And I was able to do that by just making that node wider with that mod. It's a really good mod. And there's one more mod that has been released. I wasn't using it yet in this episode, but I'm going to be using it a lot in the upcoming episodes. And that is a mod that allows you to basically make road markings just by it's as simple as how the lane connector thing in Traffic Manager mod works, President Edition. It works exactly the same. You just take one point, you connect it to another, and it draws a line in between. And then after it, you can just drag the road, and the lines will update automatically. It's really good. I've been testing it out a little bit, and it really works well. So I'm gonna be using that as well in the future because it's gonna save a lot of time having to draw all the decals with prop line tool and all that stuff. It's really annoying, and that is really such a big improvement. So I'm really gonna use that mod a lot. I'm really happy they released that. So yeah, I'm really gonna be working a lot on the detail right now. I'm currently working on the entrance to the station. Now this station is going to have multiple entrances as well, so that's also interesting. There's basically a bunch of pedestrian paths running through the entire station. They're running through the station buildings, and then they connect through that kind of pedestrian overpass that I use to connect all the platforms with each other. There's another pedestrian path running through that, and that then connects to the station building on the other side, because on the other side we're going to have another entrance building. So it's really interesting. I'm just using a couple of different buildings and clipping them together, and then I'm kind of using some retaining walls to kind of fit it all together. Now here you can see I'm putting in the metro stop. I'm in this episode not gonna connect that to a metro network or anything because this is the only stop we have so far. We'll get back to that later when we actually have built a slightly bigger part of the city. I'll probably come back to it and then do maybe one episode where we're really gonna work on the metro station and lay that out and kind of put all the stations in. I think that's gonna be a good episode to do as well. So as you can notice, like this series is really gonna be focused on public transport. Even though I'm also kind of focused on getting like a Japanese look, I really want it to look like a Japanese city, and that's the main focus. But I think public transport and Japanese cities, go hand in hand, especially when we're talking about a bigger Japanese city. Japan isn't necessarily that well made for car traffic. Like the roads, yes, there's car traffic, of course, and I'm gonna be doing a lot of that as well because we're gonna make some really cool elevated expressways, and we're gonna do some really interesting expressway interchanges with that as well. I've done a couple in the past, and I really know how to do them now, so it's gonna be fun. We're gonna make some pretty crazy expressway interchanges, I think. Especially if you look like in the map of Tokyo, there's some really interesting ones. You've got, of course, what is it, Edobashi. You've got Hakuzaki interchange, which is really interesting. I already made that one once, didn't end up using it because it was in the old version of Atsuki, but maybe we'll remake it because, as I said earlier, usually the second time you build something, it turns out way better. So that would be a good thing to maybe do. Just try it again. Not maybe copy it one on one, but just let myself be inspired by it and see what I come up with. It's a really interesting interchange, so I might actually build that one in the future. I think that would be really fun to do. Although I don't want to completely copy it though, like I said. So Yeah, I'm really trying to put in as much detail as I can in this particular episode. As I said, I really cut out a lot because there was so much detail and detailing to do, and still, at the end of the episode, I'm not 100% certain the station is completely done yet. I think there has to be a lot more detail still to the station, but I am kind of feeling burned out already from working on the station because it's just so big. So in the next episode, I am gonna do something completely different. That's one thing that's for sure. I am going to work on a completely different area, and I'm not going to work on the station again because then it would kind of be 3 episodes in a row that we're working on a train station, and I don't want to do that. So the area around the station, we're gonna come back to that later, and we're going to probably add some a good amount of residential in the next episode because I really want to see how the station functions. I did test it out, but because we don't really have a lot of citizens in the city yet, there's only a small area with some people living there, and other than that, there's not really anything else. So I had to do a lot of like tests in between. I like quickly built some big high density residential areas just to see if all the platforms worked. I made some temporary train stations off on the side and tested it out, and the platforms all work. I was able to make the lines on every platform, and that's just something I had to test out before I'm gonna put in hours and hours of detailing, right? So everything works and that's all nice, but we really need to expand the city first before we're going to be able to see people actually using it. So in the cinematics of this episode, there's not really that many trains running. We might see a Shinkansen or two because those already run there, are already running on their line, but there's no train lines yet. So there's no other trains that will be stopping at this station yet. So I really want to invest some time into expanding it, getting some residents into the city so that we can actually see everything working and everything how people are walking across the crosswalks in front of the station before I'm actually going to start detailing everything, you know. I think that would be a good thing to do because otherwise we might have or otherwise I might have end up just detailing everything and then I end up just finding out, oh, it doesn't work well, and then I have to do everything again. So yeah, I think expanding the city is going to be a thing that we're going to do in the next episode. But let me know in the comments below what you want me to do in the next episode or what you think would be a good thing to do. Also, like I said in the last episode, if you have ideas for something that I should build, so let's say you know a place in Japan, doesn't have to be Tokyo, could be anywhere in Japan, and you think that would be a really interesting place to build, then let me know in the comments below because I really wanna just see some other places that could be interesting to fit into the city. A good example, somebody in the last episode, I forgot who it was, somebody posted a comment about, I think it was Hiroshima. Yeah, Hiroshima, or however you pronounce it. He was saying like you should try and incorporate the Hinoden train, the trams, or I think it's like a light rail network. And I really like that idea. So what I think I'm gonna do, I think I want to make another big train station in this city that's probably closer to like the old area of the city, so where we're gonna have a lot more traditional Japanese housing and stuff like low density housing and also like some older looking shops and stuff like that. I think I want to have the light rail or tram, however, whatever it is. I think I want to have that kind of running there. I think that would be nice to have instead of doing it in the downtown. Especially because in the downtown we are already going to have so many different things running. And I also need to kind of figure out how to incorporate a tram network with the Japanese roads that I'm using. I think I'm going to be able to do it if I use maybe. There's one version of the roads that has a really wide median, so maybe I can put a network on that. I also have to really first investigate the whole light rail in Hiroshima. I really haven't looked too much into it. I looked up a couple of YouTube videos and I thought, yeah, it does look cool. And I think it would fit really well in a more older area of the city, kind of having that as like the main public transport in that area, and then maybe one train station that connects to like the edge of it. But yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. So in the last episode, somebody also said that they didn't wouldn't really mind if I would put some of my own music in. So I might put some music in right now. Let me just put some music in that I'm currently working on. This is some drum and bass music, some music that I actually make when I'm making the music that I actually do for my own, that is not for a City Skylines video. I hope you like it. If you don't, then just, skip to the next part of the video or just mute it for a second. This is something that I'm currently working on. So here you can see where I'm really putting in like the high density buildings, the big skyscraper here, and you can see that little narrow area, what I meant earlier, where the monorail runs through. It's gonna look really awesome in the end when it's done, especially when we're gonna have multiple stops and the monorail is actually gonna run through there. It's gonna be really cool to see, I think at least. We're gonna see, not at the end of this episode, but we're gonna see later in the series. So I also made this bus stop area. I made this bus stop area, I think I did this maybe 4 times in total. I really had a big struggle making the bus stop area, and I'm still not happy with it, how it turned out in the end. I think we need a lot more detail, because when I look at like the bus stop areas around Tokyo Station or around Shibuya Station, there's so much detail. There's so many little fences and like signs and all kinds of stuff. And the thing is, I can put that much detail in it without having to worry about the limits of the game, because most of those props that I'll need, or most of the things that I'll need for that are props. And most of those props I can convert to procedural objects. So I think I'm just gonna have to put a lot more effort into the detail of that area. I think the layout of what I did is all right. I think that's good. I just think it needs so much more detail to really look realistically Japanese. We're probably gonna come back to that at some point. I'm really gonna look into it. Probably try some things out in maybe a separate save game, a different save game. Just try some stuff out and just to see how I'm gonna do that, because I really struggled with it. So yeah, right now you can see I'm putting in the tactile pavement, these yellow lines, which is basically for blind people or people that have poor eyesight. It's really, you see it in a lot of places in the world, but in Japan you see it so much around all the big major train stations. And I really wanted to put it in. I still also want to put in like a good amount of decals, ground decals, but I kind of want to try out how to do that because I don't want any Z fighting between these tactile pavements and the ground decals. So I really, it's gonna be a little bit of a hard thing to do, but I think I'll be able to do it. So I'll probably come back to that when I'm gonna improve or detail this bus stop area more. So I'll let you guys listen to some more music, and then I'll be back a little later in the video. So now we're starting to work on the other side of the station. This is let's just say, I'm not entirely sure which direction this is, to be honest, but let's just say the main side which we just worked on where the bus stop is the north side, then this would be the south side of the station. So here I'm kind of working again. This is where the diagonal crossing is as well. So I'm putting in some ground decals. I think I later also put in some tactile pavement in this area. I'm not sure if I really did that. So I have an idea for the area right on the opposite side of this crosswalk. What I'm thinking is making like a shopping district or like a shopping street that is like a really just a pedestrian shopping street. And I think I want to make it have like a cover on top of it as well. So it's like an inside shopping street with maybe like a glass roof or something like that. Maybe not. There's also this roof for like, I think it's a shopping arcade or something, Japanese shopping arcade. Maybe I can use that. It looks pretty cool. And then I think that would be really interesting to have on the opposite side and then maybe make it slightly curved or something like that. So that was the kind of idea I had for that opposite side of the crosswalk. You know, like put a lot of billboards there, like a lot of anime culture, you know, like anime billboards and stuff like that. I think that would be really interesting to do. So this side of the station is mostly just going to be detailed with like ground textures and stuff like that. And as you can see right here, I'm just putting in some planters and stuff like that. There's some small shops underneath the railway. And I kind of envisioned the main entrance building to be also like a big shopping area. It's kind of like a big shopping mall that is also the entrance building to the station. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning that to be. Now, here I'm putting in some more high density buildings as well. It's kind of like the same building as that other bigger tower, but just smaller, and I think it really works because that building in the center just kind of connects the two. It just kind of starts being like a one bigger building, which is really it just really looks a lot better. And we also get this small corner now in front of it, which is really cool. It's going to be like a very small entrance to the station as opposed to the two bigger entrances that I already made. So here I'm going to make like a much smaller entrance. And like I said, I'm going to be able to run a pedestrian path through those buildings, and you're not going to be able to see it. It's just completely hidden. So people will actually come out of this smaller entrance as well if they need to be on this side of the station. It's probably going to be the shortest connection, so I hope that people will actually end up using it. And if not, then I'll use some other tactics. I saw City Walk City Wall talking about it, that if you have a pedestrian path with a slower speed for the pedestrians so that they walk in a slower speed, then they will actually prefer the paths that have a higher speed. So you can actually direct pedestrians in a way using different pedestrian paths. I also don't know yet if I'm going to be able to make people cross diagonally across that crossing. I mean, I can do it, but I kind of want it to be that they actually stop for the stoplights, and then when the stoplights turn green, they cross diagonally. So I'm going to try a couple of tricks to see if I can make that work, but I'm not sure if it's actually possible. I'm going to try it, but we're going to have to see if it's actually going to be if it's going to be possible. So this right here, I think this is another. I think I'm. Oh no, maybe not. I don't think that is going to be an entrance to the station. Or maybe I do. Maybe I'll actually put an entrance in here as well. Yeah, I think I am. Because we have this pedestrian path coming out of it. And then, yes, I'm putting in an entrance here. So this is another, like, small entrance into the station. So we're going to have various entrances into this big station. That's also something that I really wanted to do. Like, have some big exits and then also have some smaller ones. So this is one of the smaller ones. And here you can actually see how I really love how this actually worked. Just having that retaining wall, which looks awesome by the way, and then just putting some grass on top of it. And for some reason, it almost looks like it just belongs there. It's just part of the building. It just worked out so well. And this is the other side. I'm gonna make another entrance here. I think at least. I think I also end up making an entrance in this part. So this is like a really cool spot. This is the only spot so far where I also put an effort into the nighttime lighting. I am gonna be doing that for a lot more areas in the city, but for now I haven't really spent too much time working on the nighttime. I think it would be really cool though to have some nighttime shots of the city when the city is a little bit bigger, when we have some more high density buildings and really have some more billboards in as well. I'll try and put some good amount of effort into putting the lights in and really making everything look good at night as well. Because I really think that would just add another layer of like that Japanese aesthetic that you get when you just look at night photos of Tokyo. It looks so insane. It's just I love that information overload that Tokyo tends to give you. I haven't been there myself. That's something I might have to say. A lot of people are probably wondering about it. Like, have you ever been to Japan? No, I've not. I've never been to Japan. I would love to, actually, and the plan is to do it at some point. Right now, I mean, we have this whole COVID-19 thing going on, and traveling is not an option at this point. It's probably also not the smartest thing to do right now, so I'll just save that for a later date. And for now, I'll just build my own Japanese city and have fun with that. So, yeah, here you can see I'm actually putting in the lights. So right now we're switching to the nighttime. I think it's gonna look really good if I'm gonna put some good amount of effort into all the lighting of the city. I also put some effort into the platforms, by the way, when it comes to the lighting. You don't see that in this episode. I cut it out, or I think I forgot to record the screen footage for that. But I put some like tube lights underneath the platform covers. So when we look at the platform at night, you will actually see light on the platforms as well, because the station is completely custom built, so there's no lighting on the platforms to begin with. So I made those myself. Now, this is a really cool thing that I'm doing here. I am kind of making a part of the station covered. So I'm using these glass awning props, and I'm making them bigger with procedural objects, and then I'm just making this really big sort of like surface of glass. And glass and like metal beams. And I have these high density buildings on either side of the train station. So I figured this glass roof can kind of be connected to those buildings and just cover the entire thing. I think that would be still be pretty realistic. And to be honest, even if it's not, it looks awesome. So I'm just gonna keep it. It looks really good. And now I'm kind of putting in some more commercial buildings. I haven't really gotten to doing that much commercial in this episode. I really wanted to put like a lot more time into working on the surrounding area, but sadly it was just already I already recorded so much screen footage, and you can see from the length of this episode, it's almost 50 minutes, and I was just not going to be able to do anything more than what I did in this episode. Maybe even what you're seeing me do now, could have saved for a later episode, but I really wanted to put this last little section in. So you can see this, because I worked on that monorail on the other side, I kind of wanted to work on the monorail on this side as well, and kind of finish that section so that we have it somewhat done on both sides of the station. And this side is actually going to be really fun. We have these commercial buildings, and then the monorail runs along the back side of them. And underneath, it's going to be sort of like a pedestrian street, and there's going to be a parking garage as well on the side of it. And underneath this monorail, I'm basically putting a lot of effort into the detail with some foliage, and I think it's going to look really good. I might try later in the series to do some first-person monorail ride, and that is gonna look awesome. If I'm not sure how well it's gonna look, detail wise, because it's gonna be so close up, right? It's gonna be pretty much street level, although it's gonna be raised slightly up, but it's gonna be as close as it is when you're looking at it from street level. So I'm not sure how good the detail is gonna look then, but I might try it out. Do some first-person monorail ride through the downtown area when we have a bigger part of the city built. So here you can see me putting in that parking garage, and that's actually going to come in handy as well. So you can see me right now, I'm actually putting in a road that goes into the parking garage and then comes out on the other side, which is the exit. So that makes it pretty realistic because we're going to see cars going into the parking garage. But now I'm putting in these shops on the side of it, and I also wanted to put some shops on the other side, so along the pedestrian path or along the pedestrian walkway there. And those need road access, so they were complaining about not having road access. And since I have a road running into that parking garage, I just basically made a road coming off of that, going through the center of this line of buildings and close enough to the front of these buildings along the pedestrian side to not complain about not having road access. So if a truck, for instance, needs to deliver goods to that building, they'll just enter the parking garage. So that's going to be like, it's also going to help to see more vehicles go into the parking garage, and that's something I really wanted to see. The only thing that might not be realistic is that every now and then we might see a truck going into a parking garage, which is a little weird, but I mean, I'll just cut that out of the cinematics if that happens, and just record a piece where normal vehicles enter the parking garage. So here you can see I'm working on that area where I was talking about with the foliage, and I think it's gonna look so awesome with that fence around it, and then just, it's pretty overgrown actually. It's kind of like this area of land which is not used because it's directly underneath the monorail, and there's just a lot of foliage there. And I think when we are gonna be done with like the city, or well, not done with the city, but have the city a little bit bigger, and we're gonna have multiple monorail stops, I think it's gonna look so dope when we have the monorail running through here. So yeah, you can see that foliage is just a lot of layers of different like low to the ground foliage, some small bushes and stuff like that. And I'm not really putting in any big trees or anything because we need clearance for the monorail line, of course. And I'm just putting in like a good amount of different layers to make it look like it's really just wildly overgrown there. It's like this little green area in the middle of the city, which isn't really kept. You know, they're not really maintaining it. It's just like this little back alley area. So I think it turned out really nice. I'm not sure how realistic this is. I can't really find any areas like this directly in Tokyo, but I think it just looks really nice. So I ended up keeping it. I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure how realistic it is. And if you think it's really unrealistic, let me know. But I like how it turned out, so I'm probably just gonna keep it the way it is. So we're nearing the end of the episode. That was almost 45 minutes of this episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more. And let me know what you want to see me build in the next episode. I'm really not sure yet. So, yeah, that was it for this episode. I really liked how this turned out. We're gonna go into the final cinematics. And I guess I'll see you back in the next episode. I'm not sure if it's gonna be next week, but I'll let you guys know through a community update on this channel probably. So, yeah, that was it for this episode, and I'd like to see you back in the next one. Peace.